hone their craft. These books are Folded Pen Adventures, Bone Script and Neuland. And she also appears in the new book, The Thunderbolt and the Monk. Carol is a great presence in social media and has developed a private art group called Scribbled Lives, where a dedicated group of lettering artists share their work weekly based on a single prompt. There are currently over 70 members worldwide in this group. Today, Carol will be taking us on a journey through her beautiful and unique artist books. She has a tremendous amount to teach us and will inspire creativity in us as well. Regarding some issues, questions, please ask questions if you have them in the chat with 3 question marks. If there are not 3 question marks, they will be ignored. And this should be preceding the question. Carol will be happy to answer any questions regarding each book in a pause between the books, and I will pass them on to Carol so that they have to be in the chat. There will be plenty of time to ask additional questions after the lecture. This lecture will be recorded and will be posted on FOC's website. The next lecture will be Deanne Singh on March 22nd, and I hope you can join us then. Okay, Carol, we're so eager to hear from you.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to my tiny studio in rainy Portland, Oregon. Thank you, Elena, for all of your kind words, and to Friends of Calligraphy for inviting me to share my calligraphy artist books, dear to my heart, and I love sharing anything I do as much as possible. My interest in bookmaking began in the 1980s when I connected with Georgiana Greenwood's infectious enthusiasm about bookmaking. I find books are a wonderful way to put my calligraphy out in the world. A book does not need to be framed. A book does not need to take up any wall space, and everyone on your list of gifts would love to receive a handmade book. Books are easy to mail and store and share. There are so many reasons to become excited about making books, and I hope that my presentation helps with that a little bit. As we go through my PowerPoint and the live book sharing on my desk, I will be pointing out various bindings that might be of interest, materials that are used, maybe some information about the text or the idea that got me going making that book. But I'm sure that I won't touch on everything that you might want to know. And that's why I'm happy to take questions. I will be reading some of the texts, and in some of the books, I'll simply scroll through the pages without narration, and you can enjoy the books or read the text. All right, so there are 2 books in my collection that needed to be shared, but I couldn't figure out how to photograph correctly. So we're going to look at those 2 books live with my document camera on my desk. So I'm going to switch over there now, and we will begin. Here are the 2 books, and we'll start with this one. This binding style is called an interlocking double accordion. And if you put those 3 words in Google, you will come up with excellent instructions. One of the features of this delightful book structure is here the spine shows the white and the tan pages are woven together, interlocking, and there's no glue assembling the pages. There's glue to attach the covers, but nothing in the actual page binding. So what you have here is there's a white accordion fold structure. inside a tan one. And each of these pages that I'm flipping is double. Double. Okay. A book like this slows the reader, which I don't think is a bad thing sometimes, allowing the words to be enjoyed a little bit longer and in small pieces. I wrote the text with a folded pen and blended Winsor Newton calligraphy inks, yellow, ochre, and dark blue. They make a wonderful palette of blended colors.
Carol, could you repeat the name of the book structure?
Yes, this is an interlocking double accordion.
Thank you.
Mhm. And this is a statement by Robert Frost that I very much like and continue to write over and over and over again. I never seem to get tired of these words, and I just keep writing them. All right, so once again, let's take a look at the terrific spine that expands so nicely. Interlocking double accordion book.
And one person asked if you would please tell for each book what kind of paper you used.
Okay, this is 90-pound Arches hot press, no, cold press, watercolor paper. The white, 90-pound cold press Arches watercolor paper. The tan is Canson. And I can never pronounce the second part of the name of the Canson paper, but Mitientes or Mitant, people, I've heard it different ways. It's a nice paper to work with. Both of these are favorites. All right. I spent 3 days with a dear friend, indigo dyeing anything we could get our hands on. This book came about when I discovered Ted Kuzer's brief poem, This Paper Boats, shortly after indigo dyeing the stacks and stacks of paper. This piece of folded paper invited Kuzer's words to be written on 4 pages across the folds. I used a white gel pen for the monoline italic, and the bone script is written with watercolor. This is a brief text, and I'm going to read it. Ted Kuzer, This Paper Boat. Carefully placed upon the future, it tips from the breeze and skims away. Frail thing of words, this Valentine, so far to sail. And if you find it caught in the reeds, its message blurred, the thought that you are holding it a moment is enough for me. So
Thank you, Carol.
I'm not finished yet.
Oh, sorry.
Right, there's a little bit more. Okay. The extra fold in the back here, was an obvious place to sew a signature of pages and add yet another text. So let's close this book, This Paper Boat, and turn it over, and we find book, Carl Sagan. So this is the signature of pages sewn in that fold. I wrote Carl Sagan's words in monoline italic across the line where the Tyvek paper was dipped into the indigo dye. So I wrote right across the dip line. This is DuPont Tyvek. It's not really paper, it's spun olefin, DuPont Tyvek. And so we're just going to flip through here to the last bit. Books break the shackles of time. A book is proof that humans are capable of working magic. I absolutely love these words of Carl Sagan's, and I truly believe books can be quite magical. Opening both books here is very natural, and they manage to keep their individuality on either side of the same piece of folded paper in quarters. The materials here are, again, watercolor paper, and this is a handmade piece of watercolor paper, as is the cover on this inside book, indigo dyed, handmade watercolor paper. All right, so I'm gonna leave this way and move back. And I'm going to open my PowerPoint now and we'll continue on with books. Are there any questions?
We've had a couple of questions.
Okay,
One was regarding the first book. Would you mind saying what the two inks were?
they are Winsor Newton calligraphy ink, yellow, ochre, and dark blue.
So everyone, Carol will do her best to give us all this information as she goes along, but this lecture will be recorded and you can go back and spend more time with it later.
Any
So-
other questions about these two before we move on?
Well, I have one that says, what is the name of the second book? I don't know what you mean by name, Freddie.
What kind of book is it? Like a, not, an accordion book? What do you
It
call
doesn't, Freddie, I don't believe this has a name. It's just a folded piece of paper.
it? Oh, you
And
should
that-
give it a name.
Well, and then in the back, I sewed a signature pages.
Ah,
I just took the opportunity to use this space, which was kind of, nothing going on there. I can put a signature there.
What did you use to write on the Tyvek?
I used a monoline tool, and I have probably 50 of them. And I did tryouts, as you do. I took a piece of Tyvek paper and lined up all the monoline tools and tried them all out. And I'm sorry, I don't recall which of them worked here. It could have been a gel pen. It could have been just the ordinary pen here on my desk. I gave all black monoline tools a chance in the tryouts. I don't remember which, but if you're trying to do this, always give all your tools an opportunity, because some are going to work better than others. I don't recall which one won that contest.
Okay. Lee noticed that there was a slit in the beginning of book.
That was a mistake. Some people are really good noticers. I changed my mind about needing that slit and decided I'd have to leave it nonetheless.
Okay. And Carol Hicks has asked, doesn't the watercolor paper crack when folded?
Are we talking about this watercolor paper or this watercolor paper?
I don't know.
Okay.
Carol, do you want to answer
It
that?
did not crack, Carol.
Either one. I know the one.
It's Carol Rawlings, not Carol Hicks. When
Oh.
I have tried to fold, I think it is an Arches watercolor, probably hot press. After not very long, it developed a terrible crack along the fold, and I've been afraid to use it.
I use 90 pound. I find it folds very excellent. 140 pound might not fold too well. You want to make sure you're always folding on grain and score before you fold. I hope that helps.
Thanks.
Yeah.
What type of pen did you use on that book that you're just showing with the Winsor & Newton inks?
I use a folded pen. For this book?
Yes.
Folded pen. Yes.
And what is your process for dyeing indigo paper?
I can't go into that. That's a whole nother
Lecture.
lecture.
Okay.
That's way beyond what I can talk about this morning when my mind is on my books.
Okay. That's it for now. Thank you, Carol.
Okay. So we're moving to my PowerPoint, and I will begin to make that happen. Elena, is that happening?
Yes, it is. It's great.
Oh, good. All right. The pages of this book are, oops, just a moment here. I need to. The pages of this book are attached to a narrow accordion spine, which allows space between the pages when the book is open. The cover is Tyvek colored gray with just the title of the poem, Prayer Among Friends. I hoped to emphasize the basic points of this prayer, which is much like a list. Each page has a phrase written large, and the rest of the text is written smaller. I used a combination of cutting and embossing for the large letters on each page. The small text is written in simple monoline Romans, using a mixture of acrylic gloss medium, a drop of black ink, and a bit of water. This blend gives a luminous gray that is raised and shiny when dry. The pages of the book are Arch's 140-pound hot press watercolor paper. I will scroll through the pages now and point out that the layout is simply centered lines of writing, which give the book some structure. I like that the viewer can peek through one page to the next. The book can be displayed open, and each page separates itself from the others because of the accordion spine. So I'm going to just scroll now and let you enjoy the pages. I enjoy how the light and shadows play on the pages. The restrained use of color seems to let the words play a bigger role also. Are there any questions before we move on to the next book?
No, thank you.
I like the idea of image and text together in a book and chose to work that way for this project involving drawings and my brush calligraphy. This accordion fold book variation is known as a flag book. The accordion spine of this book has drawings of spring flowers. The brush written text was photocopied onto acetate transparencies and made into the flags that are mounted alternately to the front and back of the accordion fold spine. Photocopying my calligraphy onto acetate transparencies gave me a much better image than trying to write directly on the acetate. This shows the book's acetate transparency front cover with the list of spring bulbs. And here the book is opened flat and the spine extended. Glue and I don't get along very well, so I look for other ways to connect when possible. Here I used my sewing machine to attach the covers. It is possible to see the illustrations behind the flags, and the movement gives the book energy. I will pause a moment if there are any questions.
No questions. Thank you. That's lovely. Oh, how was the acetate attached?
The acetate flags go through slits to the back of the accordion spine, and I did use some glue back there.
Thank you. Do you use a special acetate?
The kind that will go through a photocopy machine. This triangular meander fold book, that's a mouthful, is made from paper that is painted on both sides and carefully cut and folded. The photo here shows the book open, and in the back is the small origami box that it folds up into. Each page has a cutout that supports a small green rectangle with text written in gold fine-tech watercolor. The text is brief, as there are only 9 of these small pop-up green rectangles. And the text is small tasks accomplished one by one over time add up to something bigger than I thought I could have done. And here is the triangular origami box with an origami crane atop, holding the book. It's nice to have a place for books to live. Can we move on?
Yes.
Writing out Bruce Mau's incomplete manifesto for growth was a huge project that needed to be an accordion book. The text is a list of 43 suggestions of how to be more creative, written by Bruce Mau, M-A-U. The book has 45 pages and measures 8.5 feet long. It folds up to be 10 inches by 3 inches. Each of the 43 points is a page with a combination of rustics written in black and italic in white. After much consideration, I chose the tan paper for its informal feel. Here's the book photographed in my home on a wall and lying on the floor. You can see here that between each of the rustic words in black, I placed a raised gold gilded dot just for fun. Just an added detail of interest. Here's the book in an exhibit at a calligraphy conference in 2017 with my friends Carol Pallison and Annie Sicali. I wrote out the entire text and then cut and pasted a complete rough draft that I was able to trace over on my lightbox. Here's assembling that full roughed draft. Here it is, all ready to go and stretched out on my deck. Again, ready to go. This is a test page. Much time was spent selecting the best black, and I chose gouache for its dense matte finish. Also, there were many trials with white gouache and various pens to find the best fit for this long project. Time spent in these preliminary choices is so very valuable. If you aren't familiar with Bruce Mau's Incomplete Manifesto for Growth, I highly recommend you find it easily online. All right, no questions, moving on.
Well,
I painted this piece.
there is a
I
question.
want to remind people that if you have a question, you must put 3 question marks ahead of it, because I can't keep track of all the questions.
However, there is a question without,
I see that.
okay.
When you trace on a light board, do you feel that it affects the writing? This is from Carrie Emai.
No, not at all. In fact, I'm able to write much better when I'm not nervous about where that letter is going or how that word is being spelled. I am calm, cool, collected, and doing my very best writing on the real surface, knowing that underneath I have the scaffolding, hard work to make that rough draft, but it's there and I can trust it. I just have to deliver the best calligraphy on the paper at that moment. I'm so used to doing it. It's excellent for me. Okay, any others developing? That onward. I painted this piece of paper in a workshop almost 30 years ago and liked it very much. However, never knew what actually to do with it. It bumped around my studio all these years. Then one day something clicked and it all came together. I chose this nested accordion structure because I didn't want to cut the piece of paper. The statement by William James broke itself up well into 6 parts, 1 line for each page. I like how this structure displays the piece of paper nicely. This is a top view looking down. We work in the dark, we do what we can, we give what we have. Our doubt is our passion. Our passion is our task, and the rest is the madness of art. Advice from a Tree is a simple book with hand embossed trees and Ben Shahn lettering done on 140-pound Arches hot press watercolor paper. The sturdy pages are slip knot bound and they lie flat when open. All of the photographs here are side lit to show the hand embossing. The simple message on each page is centered with the embossed tree. I did an edition of 12 of Advice from a Tree for a book exchange. It was a very enjoyable project to make 12 copies of this book. Dandelion Life Cycle. This book is simply bound with a pamphlet stitch binding, and the cover is a piece of papyrus. I have collaged bits of a wasp nest throughout the book. Here you see a spiral of wasp nest. And on this first page, just a bit of wasp nest. That is such a difficult 2 words to say together, wasp nest. This first page has only writing, 1 sentence written with a pencil. It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye. The following pages depict the life cycle of the dandelion with my hand-carved stamps. This set of stamps is modular and combine to make a wide variety of dandelion forms. There are bits of wasp nest collaged on every page representing the ground. So this book is simply images with that 1 bit of writing on the first page. Here is the cover open, showing the front and back, and showing the collection of the modular hand-carved dandelion stamps that combine to make all the images that you saw. So we are at the middle of my presentation, and I think everyone.
One question or
Okay.
questions about the wasp. What glue did you, Joanne Pari asks, what glue did you use to attach the wasp nest?
It's tough to say, isn't it?
Yeah, we've got 3 people asking about the glue. Yeah.
Okay. I used acrylic matte medium, which isn't really a glue, but it works extremely well when gluing thin things. And it doesn't seem to rumple stuff.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to breathe, stand and breathe for just 2 minutes, and then we'll move on. I think it's good to shake it out a bit. At least I need to. Elena, are there any questions developing?
Not now, thank you.
Okay.
People are very interested in all of this, and you're getting a lot of comments on how beautiful all your work is.
Oh, that's nice to hear. I feel like I'm in a isolation booth here.
Yeah, and it's wonderful for us to know that you create a structure for a book based on the situation that you're in. Like, you want to preserve a piece of work. How do you do that? Or you want to do a structure but need to figure out how to put it together, and it's
I,
quite lovely.
I want my books to have a lot of meaning. And yes. All right, I think our 2 minutes are up. And we get to start up the second half with a real favorite here of mine. During the recent pandemic, I collected whimsical words that began appearing and decided to gather them in a book made from flattened toilet paper rolls. Corona Speak, a lexicon for the 2020 coronavirus pandemic. I imagined a page for each word along with a brief definition. I chose Ben Shahn lettering and used a coronavirus drawing to replace the letter O in most of the words, as you can see here. The pages are flattened toilet paper rolls, as we well remember the supply problems with toilet paper at the beginning of the pandemic. The sturdy tan pages are bound in the slip knot style of binding with beads depicting the virus on the spine of the book. There's always something that needs to be a book. That's what I learned when this book came about. It's truly makes what that statement true, that there's always something that needs to be a book. All right.
We have one question about this book. I'm not sure, actually. It's the Slipknot book exchange book. This must have been the tree book, I guess.
Advice from a Tree is a slipknot binding as well.
Did you freelance, emboss, or cut stencils for each? That's
Each one is a stencil.
okay. I'm trying not to go back to other books.
That's okay. That's okay. I can do that.
There's a lot of questions about wasps, but if we could hold those questions to the end, it would be great. Thank you, folks.
Well, at the end, we won't be on the PowerPoint. So what are the questions about the wasp nest?
Let's see. Well, one is the dandelion book. Is the raffia used to sew the book?
Yes. You can see the raffia in the center on this image right now, right here.
Yeah. How did you harvest the wasp nest?
I was given the wasp nest. It was a gift.
Okay. And this one has, for a previous book, what was the recipe for the ink that stood up and had a shine? That was the one that you did embossing and cuts and.
Right. And that by reviewing the video, you can hear that again. It is whoa, I'm sorry. I just can't go back to that. Maybe I can try. It is a little bit of water, a drop of Higgins ink, and acrylic gloss medium mixed together.
Thank you.
You use enough water to get it to flow through your pen. And experiment, experiment, experiment. Try everything. All right, any other questions about the wasp nest? No, and we're going back to advice from a tree. These are carefully made, cut stencils that I embossed with. Okay, are we ready to move on from
Yes, I
here?
think so.
This is where we were, and now we're moving on. This simply bound book of 4 pages is made from an unusual material. I found it sold in a roll in a floral supply shop many years ago. I liked it and figured I could do something with it. It seemed to be a blend of hemp fibers, string, and paper fibers. I came upon this brief poem by William Stafford and thought it worked for the strange, rough paper. I chose to photocopy my calligraphy onto acetate transparencies and sew them onto the pages because I couldn't write on this unusual material. I chose italic with initial capitals written with a brush. Keeping the calligraphy simple seemed important because of the visually active edges of the paper. Here you can see where I sewed the acetate transparencies to the page in 3 places, and I'm going to use my cursor. There's one little bit here and up in the corners. I just made little X's with thread. I enjoy the challenge of making books from unusual materials. I came upon this charming poem about spring by Linda Pastan during a time when I was actively eco-dyeing paper. I decided to write the poem Spring using a few of the eco-dyed papers. Rather than have all the pages the same size, I chose to let the width of the page be incrementally narrower as the book went, you'll see. The page you see in the center is about half as wide as the page in the back. I chose Ben Shahn lettering and wrote with a purple gouache, aligning the words to the outside edge of the pages. The poem is a quirky take on spring's arrival. It seemed just right for this unusual binding with the strange page layout to use Ben Shahn lettering. I try always to listen to the text and feel that helps make the finished piece whole. So here the book is open to the first page, which is a wide page. Then this page isn't quite as wide. We're seeing a little bit of the other one. And that's how it is as you go through the book. The edges of the previous pages are exposed. This book lives in my house, open wide, on a music stand, and it fully displays its entire contents, which is unusual for a book. I used Arches text wove for the eco-dyed paper.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Let's see. Somebody asked what pen you used for the lettering.
I do Ben Shahn lettering with a folded pen and gouache, opaque gouache.
There seems to be questions about the eco dyeing, which is a whole nother long process. So
That could be an entire lecture, and I can't go there. It's kind of like the indigo dyeing. They are wonderful things to do, but not in the scope of what I can share this morning. The paste paper I made for this book was made with the poem in mind. Billy Collins' poem Days is just wonderful and I love it. And I had that poem in mind when I paste papered the Arches text wove for this book. It's much easier to work with knowing the words first, rather than have the papers painted and wonder what to write. The cover here has the poem's title, Days, blind embossed, and it's a little tricky to see, but it's right there. The title is here on the first page, written in copper gouache. The cutouts go through the entire book, with the flaps opening forward and backward on each page, with the window size becoming increasingly smaller. This design idea was suggested by the poem. And this is the last page, the back cover, and the book lying open, back cover and front cover, showing the paste paper. Any
Beautiful.
questions here before we move on?
We did have one question about whether or not you dilute gouache or use it full strength.
Well, full strength, it comes out of a tube like toothpaste. So yes, that's a big part of working with gouache, is getting it to be the right consistency. And it takes a lot of experimenting and practicing with it. But it's a wonderful medium to use because it's opaque.
Okay, I think we're fine.
Good. Forgetfulness is a poem by Billy Collins that inspired me to make a book. When I think of forgetfulness, I think of my mind being like a sieve. I love that phrase, and that came to mind when I decided to select materials to use for a book. I explored gauze and handmade papers and finally landed upon window screening. Window screen is easy to cut, makes very supple pages. I penned the poem in Uncial script on translucent vellum and attached the vellum to the window screen with grommets. The title on the cover is placed between two pieces of screening and reinforced with duct tape. The pages open and sort of pile up at various angles when reading the book. To attach the book on the left side, I used what I could find in my garage. I quite like that none of the items are the same. Many trials and much testing of the materials was needed for this book. Is this book practical? No. Is this book fun? I think yes. I like this book a lot. Anything to discuss before I move on?
Did you show this to Billy Collins?
I would love to show this to Billy Collins. That would be a difficult thing. I believe it would be tough to get this. If anyone has an idea, email me. This book of Brian Bilston's whimsical poem can stand on its own. A different script is used for every line.
Oh, goodness.
How to avoid mixing your metaphors. And many of the O counters were gilded. I'm going to read this. It's not rocket surgery. First, get your ducks on the same page. After all, you can't make an omelet without breaking stride. Be sure to watch what you write with a fine-tuned comb. Check and recheck until the cows turn blue. It's as easy as falling off a piece of cake. Don't worry about opening up a whole hill of beans. You can burn that bridge when you come to it, if you follow where I'm coming from. Concentrate, keep your door closed and your enemies closer. Finally, don't take the moral high road horse. If the metaphor fits, walk a mile in it. This was a most enjoyable project. Here you can see sort of the gilded O counters throughout. And here it is standing on its own. Unusual, oops, what?
There's a very large question here from
Okay,
Tatiana, who asks, how do you come up with these ideas? Which is a whole nother lecture.
it's a whole nother lecture, Tatiana, dear. I think and think and think and ponder, and I'm always working and generating ideas. So that is another lecture, thanks. The 4 pages of this book are held together with metal hinges glued in place. I wrote with a white gel pen on the varied surfaces. The latch effectively closes the book. We make a little order where we are, and the big sweep of history on which we can have little effect doesn't overwhelm us. We do it in colors, with a garden, with furnishings of a room, or with sounds and words. We make a little form and we gain composure. Robert Frost. I enjoy the sound this book makes when flipping the pages. It bangs in a wonderful way.
Valerie Sofer, wants to know how you store your books.
Carefully and in a structure that I have that's like a bookshelf. Many of them have little boxes they live in. This one is so sturdy, it could probably live outside.
Did you glue the hinge to the rock?
Yes, I did, glued in place. Liquid nails. Actually, I sent it to the Oregon State Fair one year as an exhibit piece. And I received a phone call from the person who was running the gallery at the State Fair. And she said, "We're so sorry, but your book was on a pedestal and a child grabbed it and it fell on the floor and it broke apart." And I said, "Do you have some liquid nails?" And she said, "No, but we'll get some." And they glued it back together. So this book has been made, broken, and remade. It's so sturdy.
Thank
A
you.
3-verse poem by Mary Oliver. Can a stack of rocks be a book? That's something to ponder. I wrote with white gel pen on river rocks. You'll have to decide for yourself if this is a book.
So how did you write on the rocks? Did you treat the rocks at all?
I put the rocks in my dishwasher a few times to make sure that they're super clean and all the gooey stuff from outdoors is off. I use skinny pieces of masking tape as the guidelines. And I can lift it if I need to do a descender or something. But it's nice because then I don't have anything to remove, chalk or whatever. And you generally have to go over each letter 2, maybe 3 times with the gel pen.
Do you have a special brand that you like?
It changes from time to time and depends maybe on how old the gel pen is or how long I've had it. So once again, I line them all up for tryouts. We have tryouts.
Do you seal the lettering?
You can.
And what do you seal it with?
A matte spray varnish, which changes brands too often for me to recommend one. You would take your rock to the hardware store and say, "Hi there, I would like to seal this rock. What would I use?" And they'll sell you a spray that's matte. You don't want it shiny.
Thank you.
And the whirlwind binding is an ancient style of binding that is sort of like a scroll and sort of like a banner. There are 5 pages to my book here, and it is held together at the top with a group of vintage pens and brushes. Dictionary pages were used, and gesso was applied to the dictionary pages. I sewed the pages together on my sewing machine. The first page, where you see at the top, is 1 dictionary page. The second page is 2 dictionary pages, machine sewn. The third page is 3 dictionary pages sewn together, and on and on. There are 15 dictionary pages in this whirlwind book. Oops. I chose to keep the text simple with the left justified margin. I wrote with a folded pen and Sumi ink. The loosely written gilded capitals provide contrast and a little bit of bling. Many trials and much testing were involved. Using gesso on the pages made sense
I'm gonna put
to
this in the trash.
filter the dictionary text, give the page more heft, as well as create a good surface for writing and gilding. Here's a trying to figure everything out page. Here's the complete piece by Carl Sagan, so you can read and enjoy the words at your leisure. This whirlwind book came together with such grace and ease for me that it is very special to me. It's one of my favorite books. Are there questions? I will take that as a no, and we are finished. Thank you for your wonderful attention and for letting me share my books with you.
Thank you so much, Carol. I think you need to make a book about your books. I think that these photographs are wonderful and they would make a beautiful book.
Thanks. That's kind of a cool idea.
So we do have some questions. Sorry, Andy Thrams is asking, do you ever reproduce or make editioned books, or all your books one of a kind? And she says, thanks, Carol, for sharing your process. So wonderful to see how your work has evolved over many years.
Andy, I do make edition books where I'll use photocopies, digital photo, and that's kind of a different, again, that would be a different talk. Edition books would be an interesting talk, actually, because it's such a practical thing to be able to design a book and then make additions to either share or sell or give, whatever. And I have many that I've done that way. Yes.
Carol Taylor is asking, how do you store the Whirlwind book?
It hangs in my home. I just let it drop down. It went to San Francisco for an exhibit and I rolled it up, and it got to San Francisco and they unrolled it and then they rolled it up and sent it back to me. So rolling and unrolling doesn't seem to have any effect on it. Sturdy little dictionary pages and gesso.
Mm-hmm.
It works.
Mari Smith is asking, do you have permission to use Carl Sagan's words? I can't tell.
No, I'm not selling it. I can use his words for my personal use, for one-off projects. That is my understanding anyway. If I were to put it on the market in an edition or publish, I can't do that.
Yeah, so you have to worry about making this book I'm talking about because you use so many quotes.
Right, that would be, we'd be getting into that realm of permissions and a lot of stuff.
Jan Turner is asking, do you have any tips about what bindings are suitable for a particular project, assuming you start with the words rather than with the binding?
I don't ever start with the binding. That wouldn't get me where I want to go, because what I want to do is have words that are just burning a hole in my head that I want to get out in a book form. So I maybe do a lot of pondering and thinking, gee, is this, going to be an accordion book or a whirlwind book? How's this going to go? It just takes a lot of thinking.
Great. And Lee is asking, do you make scrolls as well as codexes? The whirlwind is a scroll, basically.
Whirlwind is as close as I've gotten to a scroll. Yeah.
Okay, I don't see any other questions, folks. If you have any more, please let me know. Or at this point, I think you can unmute yourself and ask Carol in person so she knows that people are out there.
Jane Brenner asks, do you ever create books for clients?
I have done that. And it's an interesting process because I have to kind of turn off some of what I would want and open up a lot of what they want. So we have to meet in the middle there, kind of. If that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. There are some questions that I wasn't able to ask at the right time. So if anyone has any burning things from previous books, please ask their questions now.
This was really inspiring. I'm excited by your presentation. Thank you.
Well, I love hearing that. Thank you.
Yes, it's been wonderful. Thank you, Carol.
Good.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Always something that needs to be a book.
And please don't hesitate to look Carol up. She teaches and she's taught a lot. And when she's done Zoom, she records a lot of her classes that are now purchasable. So, and I've done that and it's really very wonderful.
Thank you.
And she will be teaching at Letters California Style in
Yes.
Pomona, California in 2024.
Yes.
Yay.
Hi, Carrie.
Carol, I've been saying it for over 30 years. You are dazzling.
Barry, don't see your face, but I hear your voice. Thank you. And I heard the dazzling. That made my day. Thank you.
That's a wonderful word.
It's a wonderful word. And he always remembers to use it. Thank you, Barry.
That's such a nice word, Carol. This is Jill Berry. My picture isn't up, but
Hi,
I
Jill.
just want to tell you, every time I see your work, I laugh and I appreciate your mind and I just love watching it. I just love it. I'm so impressed.
Thank you.
So impressed.
Thank you.
Carol, someone wants to know the author of the quote or prayer in the gray book with the cutout and embossing.
They'll be able to look that up when they watch the recording.
Oh, good answer.
Because I think it's John Daniels, A Prayer Among Friends, and it's easy to find online. I believe he lives in Eugene, Oregon, too.
Carol, it was fabulous. I love looking at your stuff. This is Anita.
Oh, hi, Anita. Thanks.
Hi. Oh, wonderful.
Thank you.
Carol,
Well, Thank
So-
you all. I think that Carol needs to go relax.
Hey,
Um,
Carol, this is
thank you.
Tatiana. Please do a bookmaking workshop here in Portland soon.
Okay,
We would love to do that. I'll email you. I
all right.
miss,
I'm going to stop the
Thank you so,
recording.
well, before you do that, Nancy, I want to remind people that this is recorded and that we also have a lecture coming up in March on the 22nd with Deanne Singh. We are continuing this series.
Can I say what the,
You
so Deanne is
certainly-
going to be, Deanne is going to be giving a lecture about her experience being a calligrapher for Hollywood in movies. It's fascinating.
How do we sign up for that?
We'll be sending out notices to our membership, and we'll also have, if you periodically check the Friends of Calligraphy website on our events page, we'll publish it there also.
Thank you.
Raul, if you would like to wave, you are the webmaster for Friends of Calligraphy. So give us a wave, Raul, so people can see you. And he's the one that will send out everything through Eventbrite.
A physical wave or a virtual wave? He'd give you a virtual wave. Let's see, where are the virtual waves? There we go. Let's see, I can't find my.
That's okay. Your wave was great. So thank
That's
you.
great.
So Raul, make sure that everybody receives information, and we do all of these lectures through Eventbrite. So
Great.
thank you.
It'll be on the
I
event.
think you can stop recording now if you want, Nancy.
All right, so I'm going to stop the recording.
Elena, thank you so much. I loved working with you. Thank
We
you,
love
Elena.
working with you too. Thank you, Carol.
It was good.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.